G'day guys, Dave Lee coming at you once again from Down Under. About 3 months ago, back in January, I put together an editorial video which I called How Star Wars Fans Killed Star Wars. I'm assuming that if you have been following my channel for quite a while, you have most likely seen this video. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to leave a link down the bottom that you can go and check it out before you watch this. So if you just kind of want an idea of what I'm talking about here. This is a video that has actually been received very, very well. This is my 4th most viewed video of all time at this moment, and it's had quite a bit of positive interaction with it. But of course, this is the internet, and along with that, there is a lot of negative interaction as well. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that some of the fans out there kind of weren't too happy with the video that I put together. I want to say from the get-go that this is not a video that I intended to divide a fan base. It's not a video that I intended to incite more rage or incite abuse, harassment, not only of myself, but again to the filmmakers and other fans. This was never designed to be a springboard for people's hateful comments. This is an editorial video, which means I'm just basically going back through the facts and kind of talking about a little bit of the history of the Star Wars franchise, why I believe the franchise has wound up where it is now in the hands of Disney, and we can trace that back to fan backlash that started happening around the mid to late 1990s and continued on for a couple of decades. Basically left George Lucas a broken man and led to him selling the Star Wars franchise off. So this is kind of my exploration of that. And I guess that the one thing that I wanted to get out of this was a dialogue between fans. I wanted to create sort of like a conversation where people could go, okay, well, I don't necessarily think that this is true because of this and this and this and this. And then someone else can go, well, I think it is true because of this and this and that. But again, this being the internet, people haven't been so level-headed. There have been people shouting stuff like, you're a you idiot, you are for liking this movie, you piece of go die, kill yourself, you're a soy boy if you like this movie. People have gone crazy. I mean, this is the thing that I'm trying to spotlight in this video, is how this fandom can be so toxic, so horrible to the creators and the other fans. My aim of this video was to put a spotlight on that and make people go, okay, well, maybe we have been too harsh. Let's kind of pull back on that a little bit. But the comments thread on this video has really just turned into nothing more than a proof of what I'm trying to say about this fandom and the state that this fandom has found itself in. Now, that being said, there has been one reply to this video that has stood out to me. And this actually comes in the form of a video reply, like a video reaction kind of thing. It's by a guy named John Talks Star Wars. He's got a channel where he just talks about Star Wars stuff. And he actually did a video reply to my video. Here's just a little clip from the beginning of John's reaction.
I just watched a video by Dave Lee Down Under. And I have to say, it's a really well put together video. It's a really well put together argument. And the title of his video is How Star Wars Fans Killed Star Wars. And I just respectfully disagree with him. His assessment that it's the fans' fault and it's ultimately the fans that killed Star Wars, I don't believe that's fair.
Okay, so first up, I have to say to John, thank you so much for putting together this video. Though you don't agree with me, that's completely fine. I have said so many times in my videos and in my comment feeds that I don't mind if people have a different opinion to me. No two people are ever going to agree 100%. There is nothing wrong with criticism. There's nothing wrong with having difference of opinion as long as you can talk about that in a mature way. And what John has displayed here is someone who has really watched my video and watched it a couple of times and really said to himself, you know what, I'm going to try and comprehend what he's saying and take it on board. And John, what you have done is you have delivered a very level-headed and very mature response to my video, and I have to thank you for that, because even though you do disagree with most of or all of what I'm saying, you have enough pride to be able to do what I wanted to get out of this video, and that is to give me a response in a level-headed manner and go, well, you know what? I disagree with you, and this is why. And I respect that and I appreciate that. What I'm going to do here, John, is I always say on my channel that if someone is willing to give up their time for me, I am always willing to give my time back to them in return. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just kind of play little snippets from your video and just kind of react to it and kind of put my 2 cents in, give you a rebuttal to your rebuttal. Now, I agree with a lot of what you're actually saying in this. There are a few things that I don't necessarily agree with. So let's just talk about this. Let's do it. So
I'm somewhat indifferent about the prequels in terms of I don't have this deep-seated animosity or hatred towards George Lucas for the prequels, but I did watch the prequel trilogy recently. To me, it just didn't age really well, and I think a lot of it was the CGI, and the acting too is pretty bad. But I will say this about the prequels. There is a storyline there. The characters do have story arcs, and there is a progression from episode 1 to episode 3. And in it you see the rise and the fall of Anakin Skywalker. And granted, I don't necessarily like the aesthetics of the film. I don't like all the computer generated imagery, but I will give the prequels that. But I would say the backlash against George Lucas for doing the prequels was warranted.
Okay, so what I'm going to say to that, John, is that I say this all the time. There's a very big difference between critique and backlash. What a lot of fans of not just this fandom, but a lot of fandoms out there do is that they can't seem to find the difference between the two. A lot of these people are backlashing, a lot of these people are abusing and harassing fans and filmmakers because they didn't like the movie, and they're doing this because they feel like this is going to have an effect, that it's going to get the filmmakers' attention and pull the filmmakers' heads in and go, you know what, we're doing something wrong. All in all, this is just really doing the complete opposite. This is just making people turn a blind eye and go, you know what, I'm not going to listen to them, because why reason with someone who's just going to abuse you and harass you? And again, it's what George Lucas did. He said, if these people are just going to be abusing me and harassing me no matter what I do, why do I want to keep making movies for them? And this is what Disney's going to do. They hear this massive backlash of people yelling at people and shouting, sending death threats and telling people they're horrible people and they should go and rot in hell and all this stuff because they made a movie, a piece of entertainment. These people aren't going to listen to them. They are going to go, well, let us just cater to the people who enjoy what we're doing, who are actually going to appreciate it and be entertained by it. Okay, critique is welcome. And again, John, you have proven that you are able to give a level-headed and mature critique of these movies. And throughout this video, you do display this. I'm going to be putting a link down the bottom, I should say, to John's entire video if you want to go and check out what he has to say, because his entire video, he has some really, really good things to say about the franchise and the quality of the movies, etc., etc. So go and check it out. And this is the kind of thing that's needed. Critique is needed no matter what the film, no matter how good or how bad the movie. Critique is needed, but it needs to be done in like a mature kind of way. Backlashing against a movie, showing hatred and just abusing people, yelling at people, swearing at people, that's not the way to do it. So in that respect, no, the backlash towards George Lucas was not warranted. There was no need for people to get so personal, so intense. If you want to have your 2 cents on why you didn't like the movie, do it in a mature and responsible way. Don't act like a child and don't lash out irrationally. That's not the way to get things done. And again, that's kind of the point of my video. And John, I'm not saying this to you personally, because again, you have demonstrated that you are able to do this in a mature kind of way without backlashing or whatever. And I respect you for that. I really do respect you for that. So you kind of do get this idea though, and you even do say in your video,
now should the fans have been so belligerent against George Lucas? But at the same time, I don't think it's wrong for fans to be critical and to call out the creator of a series or the director of a film for making some decisions that, quite frankly, just did not seem to make a whole lot of sense. Now, whether it's George Lucas handing us a box of crap or it's Disney handing us a bigger box of crap, I still think fans have the right to say, you know what, that's a box of crap.
And again, you are saying pretty much exactly what I'm saying, and that is that it's okay to critique a movie. If you're not happy with something that someone has done with a movie or with the franchise, that's okay. You can speak out against that, and I welcome that on my videos. And again, I just want to create that discussion, which is what we're doing right now, and I love it. I think it's great. But again, the way that people have gone about doing it is it's wrong. It's not the right thing to do. People need to find a different way to express what they're feeling about these movies. I should say here though that my video was never ever about defending any of the movies or debating the quality of the movies. The video had nothing to do with that, okay? Because we all know that the fan base is divided on the prequels and on the new movies and whatever. So I'm not touching that. I didn't touch on that because it wasn't relevant. The thing that was relevant to my video was that how backlash became so intense that it did lead to this man becoming broken and selling his babies for less than what they were worth. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the prequels. I love them because they're Star Wars and I grew up with them. I'm 26 years old, so I was like 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old when The Phantom Menace first came out, and I grew up with that as a kid, you know, and I love the movies because I was a kid, and I have a lot of nostalgia for them, and I understand how people who grew up in the 1970s with the original movies might not like the prequels because, you know, they're viewing them with different eyes, and it's the same with the new trilogy. People are viewing these with different eyes, and just nothing's ever going to live up to those original movies. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Attack of the Clones. I don't really like that movie at all. Revenge of the Sith I really enjoy. Phantom Menace I don't think it's a great movie, but I love it because I have a lot of nostalgia attached to it. And that movie, along with A New Hope, are the two movies that I kind of put down to me wanting to be a filmmaker and wanting to do film criticism and all that kind of stuff. So I have a lot of nostalgia when it comes to those movies. But again, my video was never about the quality of these movies. It was never about defending the quality of these movies. It was just a social commentary on people who take their opinions to this extreme level. Let's get that out of the way for a bit. Let's just talk a little bit about what you're talking about when it comes to the prequel movies here.
And while you could make an argument that his films were revolutionary in terms of computer-generated imagery, you could also make the claim that a lot of it was just being lazy. Now, if you look at the original trilogy and you look at the amount of work and pre-production that went into those films, and I would argue that it was George Lucas's limitations that actually made his films better, because he had to actually think through things a lot more rather than just say, oh, we'll just CGI this scene here, or we'll just digitally do it here. And granted, while they spent millions on the CGI in those prequel films, I would still argue that when you look at the original trilogy, you could tell that was a labor of love.
Now, I don't necessarily think what you're saying here is 100% true. I do agree with you to an extent. Lucas's filmmaking may appear to have gotten a little bit lazy over the years. I mean, episode 3 was entirely shot on green screen, and that's kind of not good. George Lucas has actually expressed over the years how he believes the film industry is overusing CGI, how the film industry is abusing CGI, and maybe when it came around to episode 3, George Lucas did, I would agree, George Lucas, he will rip into other people about abusing the CGI, but he kind of did it, he kind of did it himself, especially when it comes to episode 3. But with episode 1 and 2, Lucas was pioneering special effects as it happened. The same reason you mentioned the OT and how much work and pre-production went into creating the models and creating the visual effects and all that kind of stuff, and how he had to think through things more because the technology he wanted to make his movies with didn't exist in the late or the mid 1970s, and he and his team had to literally invent things to make that work, to make those movies work, and to realize his vision on the screen. But I could argue that he did exactly the same thing with the prequel trilogy. George Lucas has said many times that he wants to keep ahead of the pack. He doesn't want to. He called The Force Awakens retro, and he didn't like the way that it went back to using practical effects. I personally loved the way that The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi did do that, have used practical effects in conjunction with special special effects. But George Lucas's way of doing things was always, again, I'm going to use that thing that a lot of these people who hated The Last Jedi use. It's let the past die. And that's not necessarily a good thing, I agree with that. But that was not only Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson's sort of idea of how to make the movies, that was how George Lucas was making the movies all along. Let the past die, move along, keep up with the trends, invent things to make new things and make movies bigger and better and bolder. And each movie really he made was groundbreaking. The prequel movies were as groundbreaking when it comes to special effects as the original trilogy were when it came to visual effects. These movies were enormous and he was breaking new ground with each movie that he did. Again, once we come to episode 3, he'd done pretty much all the pioneering he needed to do. There was still a few things that they kind of pioneered in that movie, but yes, there was an overabundance of special effects and maybe he did take it a little bit too far. It would have been nice to get a little bit of practical stuff in there, considering the movie was entirely shot on green screen. I don't completely agree with that. So in effect, I'm kind of in agreement with you. When it comes to episode 3, but episode 1 and 2, I can't bring myself to agree with you that Lucas was a lazy filmmaker. He was pioneering films. If it were not for Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, modern filmmaking right now wouldn't exist in the state that it does. He and his team at ILM invented things that filmmakers take for granted today. Like he did with the original trilogy, George Lucas needed to find a way to tell his story because it just wasn't possible when he went into the prequel trilogy. I'm going to just quote a few things from the ILM website here. The ILM website mentions of the Phantom Menace. It had the first walking, talking CG film star, the first high-speed race through a virtual landscape, the first battle scenes with thousands of CGI characters, the first characters who use rigid body stimulation, the first use of motion capture to propel armies of characters. Before this film, no one had combined actors shot on blue screen stages with digital characters and CG effects in environments seamlessly patched together from footage shot on location and digital models for more than 1,000 shots. By showing other directors what could be done, Lucas and ILM had a phenomenal impact. When it comes to Attack of the Clones, ILM calls it a landmark film and says that George Lucas realized his long-held dream of making the first all-digital movie. Among the technical evolutions of this film were techniques for simulating the dynamics of rigid bodies and cloth, using the laws of physics once set in motion. The digital replicas of real-world objects moved accordingly to the same force of gravity and friction that would have affected them in the real world. Lucas and his team at ILM paved the way for modern filmmaking in the way that he paved the way for modern filmmaking back in the 1970s. He was groundbreaking with both trilogies of these movies. You may hate special effects, you may like practical effects better, but again, as Lucas says, these are tools to help you tell your story, and Lucas just wanted to get bigger and better. To say that he didn't put in as much thought or as much love and care into the prequels as he did with the original trilogy, I just respectfully disagree with you. I think that all along, George Lucas's heart was in the right place. Create better cinematic experiences for fans, but unfortunately, a big portion of the fans preferred the way it used to be done. And it was the same, in the 1920s when sound first came in. People didn't want to know about sound. I just want my movies without people talking. Let's not go down there. When color came into it, I don't want to go to the cinemas and watch something in color. No way. Why? Let me just stick with what's old. Why are you using color? It's the same thing. It just repeats itself over and over and over again. But look, we're comparing tangible things with non-tangible things, and people are always going to react better to things that you can physically touch and are real than things that we know aren't real. There's always going to be a backlash against that, and that's kind of fair. This is the way the world rolls.
I mean, I would still argue that the original trilogy to this day still holds up, and it actually holds up better than the prequels.
This statement I'll completely agree with. The original trilogy does hold up better than the prequels, but again, we have to ask ourselves, is that because we've grown up with the original trilogy and nothing can match up to them? Is that why people hate The Last Jedi? Because they have these original movies on such a high pedestal that nothing can ever match up to the heights of that. I would like to get the opinion of someone who's maybe 8 years old right now, who has seen The Last Jedi, and what he thinks of the old movies in comparison to the new movies. That's an interesting take, because these movies have always been made for kids. These movies are always designed to be family movies, and they're aimed at the younger audiences. They're not for older people. They may have little things here and there that appeal to the fans, but really what we have to understand is that Disney and Lucasfilm really are aiming these movies to be family movies. These movies aren't for us anymore. These are for the new generations, the new kids, and we gotta let them have this. We gotta let them have these movies and love these movies and nurture these movies the same way we did with the original trilogy, and the same way my generation did with the prequel trilogy when when they were coming out. Now, I'm going to address just a couple more things here. Now, John has put together an analogy here, how he perceives my message of the original video. Let's take a look at that.
But I mean, ultimately, Disney made moves that totally disregarded the fans. And so us choosing not to see the next movie, how is that our fault? I mean, if Star Wars were to fizzle out and die, whose fault is it? Is it our fault because we don't want to see bad films? Or is it Disney's fault, and was it George Lucas's fault for not putting out better Star Wars movies? So I don't think Star Wars fans who weren't happy with the prequels and who aren't happy with the state of Star Wars now under Disney are responsible for killing Star Wars. That's ridiculous. Again, I think that's like a battered woman getting beat by her husband, basically saying, you know, it must be my fault. It's something that I'm doing wrong and all of that. No, that's ridiculous.
Look, this is a bad analogy. This is completely incomparable, because this fan backlash did 100% lead to George Lucas selling Star Wars to Disney, because he just had enough. He'd had enough. He didn't want to deal with it anymore. In this case, in the case of Star Wars, the Star Wars fandom did do something that had an adverse effect on them, and now they are dealing with the repercussions. This is completely different to a woman or someone who is the victim of an unprovoked physical attack, because absolutely that person should not blame themselves. That person is not to blame. It's the abuser, the person who abused them. In the case of Star Wars, again, the fans did backlash against the movies, so the fans did do something to provoke the buyout. I think a lot of people are missing the big picture with my video here. John, you are one of the only people who have responded to my video and has actually grasped a great deal of what I'm saying in my video and kind of understood where I'm coming from, or at least understood what I'm saying. But again, I think the big picture of this is getting lost. I don't think Star Wars is dead. So I say this at the end of the video too, and I know a lot of people who have watched this probably haven't watched it to the end. I do not think Star Wars is dead. I love where Star Wars is. I love the movies, and I will continue to praise the movies. I will buy the movies. I will support the franchise. I will do whatever I can do to keep this franchise going. And Disney and Lucasfilm, they're gonna cater towards the fans like me who enjoy this, because they're gonna cater towards the people who enjoy their work. This is a fandom that has been split right down the middle. They need to be able to make stuff that they know people are gonna react well to. Sure, maybe they could address some of the criticisms. I don't think The Last Jedi is a perfect movie. I think it has flaws, but I still love it in spite of that. The same way that I love the original trilogy, even though that has massive flaws as well, and we need to understand that. Yes, Lucasfilm or Disney can kind of sit back and address a few criticisms, but again, the criticism needs to be done in a mature, level-headed way, and not like, F you Disney, F you Lucasfilm, you're do it better, I'm gonna boycott all your movies. That's not the way to do it. I, again, do not think Star Wars is dead, so I am not personally blaming anyone for the death of Star Wars. The point of my video is to put it back on you to kind of make up your decision about where you stand. If you don't think Star Wars is dead, then you can be happy and you can just kind of move on with your life and just kind of be content with the place that everything is in. But if you do really believe that Star Wars is dead, you need to put a microscope on yourself and on the other fans who tiraded against the movie, who harassed the creator, and who harassed and hated on the other fans for liking it. You need to kind of own up for some kind of responsibility to go, okay, well, what we did in the past did have an adverse effect on what is happening now. And you need to go, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that, and maybe we shouldn't continue to do it. But no one's getting that message. That's the message I wanted to put out there. You need to realize that what has happened in the past can't continue in the future if you want good things. And as I say, and as John even recognized in my video, is that I'm saying this will get to a point where there's no Star Wars movies ever again. And right now you may say, if they're going to remain in the state that they're in right now, then I don't ever want Star Wars ever again. I don't care. I'd be happy. Well, the thing is, if you stop being so hateful and so spiteful and so abusive towards people about these movies, things aren't going to change. You need to be able to critique these. You need to be able to have a conversation like me and John are having right now. You need to be civil about it if you you want things to change. Don't boycott the movies. Don't tirade against them. Don't hate on people for liking them or for loving them. Don't call people names because they have a different opinion to you. Respect all opinions if you want your opinions respected, and just be civil. I know that is just, we're so far beyond reasoning with anybody. No one's ever going to agree. And even me and John, I mean, you and I, mate, we don't agree 100% on everything, but at least I can respect your opinion and you can respect mine. And that's what fans need to be able to do in order to kind of, you know, see any kind of change happen. And I welcome change. I love where the franchise is at, but I welcome change, and I'm all for bigger and better movies. And going into the future, I know it's a big ask, but the hate's got to stop. The hatred has to stop. If you want things to change, you got to be civil about it, because the filmmakers aren't going to listen or reason with people who are acting like a child, throwing his dummies and his rattles out of the cot because he's had enough. A lot of people have been using this analogy that is, if a chef cooks me a meal that I don't like, why would I blame the other people in the restaurant or blame myself for a bad meal? No, you wouldn't. You would go up to the chef and you would reasonably say to him, I didn't like this meal. This is what you can do better in the future. I'd like my money back maybe, or whatever. You just kind of say, look mate, this wasn't a good meal. You're doing it in a reasonable way, right? What you guys are doing, to use your analogy, is you're getting a meal that you don't like and you're throwing it across the room in a fit of rage, running around the restaurant like crazy, going up to other people in the restaurant who'd like the food, saying, you're a idiot for liking this food. Why the do you like this food, you soy boy? You. And then running over to the next person. Why are you still eating this? You need to boycott this food because we need to let the restaurant know that the food is they need to make better food. And then you run up to the chefs, the people running the restaurant, and you go, you, I hate you, I'm boycotting everything you do. You ruin my life, you ruin my childhood, you're all That is everything kind of in a nutshell. That's kind of how I'm perceiving everything here. If you want to use that analogy, you need to take that really seriously. So guys, I'm going to go back to one more point that John had to say right here.
But yeah, I'm not so sure that I want George Lucas back either. I don't think that George Lucas is the answer. At this point, I think Disney's decision-making process in terms of picking people to do these films needs to be a lot more thorough.
Okay, I agree. George Lucas being out of the picture is probably not the worst thing. But again, I would have really liked to have seen his 9-movie arc completed. While I do love the movies that we have now, I still just kind of wonder what these would have been like had he been involved, or had Disney and Lucasfilm taken on his original treatments, his original ideas. I do kind of wonder about that. And if Disney has done anything wrong, I think that may be one thing that they have done wrong. Get him in, take his treatments, use him as a consultant, not necessarily have him as the filmmaker, but I would have liked to have seen that.
I also believe that getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy would be a good start. And since there was such a backlash with The Last Jedi, I think not giving Rian Johnson his own trilogy would also be a good start, and a way of Disney saying, look fans, we're sorry, we messed up, but we're gonna try to make it right.
I don't think Disney have anything to apologize for. I don't think they need to take the trilogy off Rian Johnson because a portion of the fan base didn't like The Last Jedi, because a large portion of the fan base did like it, and a large portion of audiences did like it. I don't think Disney have anything to apologize. I think Disney just should keep doing what they're doing, take on some advice, take on some criticisms, but again, just keep turning a blind eye to the people who are being hateful and spiteful and just really, really mean-spirited, just so unpolitically correct. I mean, I'm sick of it. I don't want to argue. I don't want to keep arguing. And look, if you want to keep spamming my page with hateful whatever, do whatever you want, because I've said my bit and this is my kind of final say on this whole thing. As far as responding and arguing with people who are being vicious in the timeline, I'm done with that. I couldn't be bothered with that. I don't want an argument. If you want to come to me like John has come to me with a really reasonable, level-headed response, reply, and wants to have a discussion and debate, fully up for that. But I'm just tired of dealing with people who want to hate on me, hate on the filmmakers, hate on other fans because we have a different opinion to them. Everyone's opinion counts, whether you like the movie, whether you dislike the movie, and we need to be free and open to be able to discuss these things in a very civil and mature way, because we're all adults here. Although some of the people in these threads are not acting like it, and then just pull your heads in and just take some advice from John. John has done it in a perfect way, provided some great criticism, some great feedback, some great comments. John, thank you once again so much for your video. I loved it. I love that you could remain level-headed and civil and we can have this discussion here. I really like your thoughts. I've watched a couple of your other videos and I've really liked to hear your thoughts, your level-headed thoughts on the movie, why you didn't like it. I love it. I've subscribed to your channel. I don't 100% agree with everything you say, and you don't 100% agree with what I say, but at the end of the day, two humans are never going to 100% agree on anything. People are always going to clash, and I am open to hearing the other side of the coin as long as it's civil and level-headed. And John, I'm giving you a subscribe because I'm really interested in what you have to say about these movies going forward. So thank you once again. And again, John's full video is linked down below. My full video is linked down below if you want to check both of them out. Just get a little bit of context behind this or whatever. John has some really, really great things to say. And if you want to see it all in depth, again, check out his video down below. Please don't go over to John's page and spam him or anything. He respectively asked his subscribers not to come to my video and do that. So I'm going to ask you guys not to go over there and do that to his videos. And again, I just please keep it civil down in the comment section here, or else I just know that these words are not getting through to anybody. If you're a first-time viewer of my channel, this is the first video of mine that you've seen, and you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, then please hit that big old subscribe button at the end of the video and give me a little bit of support. To all my regular viewers out there, thank you once again for joining with me and sticking with me through this video. To absolutely everybody out there, don't forget to hit that like button down below. It does a great deal in getting my videos out there. I hope I see you all again soon, guys. Until next time, take it easy, and may the force be with you always.